Beaver County, Pennsylvania. According to a number of the eyewitnesses we saw, there was a large explosion when the plane went down. Apparently, the engines appeared to cut out. The plane was at low altitude and then apparently nosedived into the ground. One nurse who was in the area said that she saw body parts all over the place, and other eyewitnesses have told us that no ambulance crews were leaving the scene with their lights flashing or their sirens wailing. What was interesting from the interview that was done with Jim Bothwell, who is the director of the Stat Medevac helicopter rescue program there, was that their call came in from Pittsburgh Air Traffic Control at 7:19 p.m. The flight was due into Pittsburgh at 7:09. According to a witness that we talked to, the crash occurred at 7:03 p.m. Please stay with CNN. We will have the latest for you. As it comes in, Prime News will return after this.
From some emergency personnel and witnesses at the scene is that there do not appear to be any survivors. That has not been confirmed by USAir or by emergency personnel at the scene. Flight 427 originated in Chicago and was destined for West Palm Beach, Florida, after a stop in Pittsburgh. It has not been immediately clear if the plane was landing or taking off from Pittsburgh Airport when it went down, but the latest word that we have was that the plane was landing. It crashed in a field about a half a mile from a wooded area near the airport in a field behind Green Garden Plaza Shopping Center on Route 60. An eyewitness has told KDKA television, our affiliate there, as well as CNN, that there were pieces of plane and baggage and body parts scattered everywhere, that it appeared to her that the engines just simply dropped off the plane or just quit, and that there was a loud explosion when the plane went down, that it was too close to the ground. Again, 126 people on board, and we will continue to keep you updated on this story as more information comes in. In other news, though, one of America's deadliest...
Behind a shopping center. No immediate word on casualties. AP is quoting a rescue official at the scene as saying they have found no survivors. A witness gives an early report from the scene to CNN affiliate KDKA.
It appeared from the people that I talked to that the plane was taking off at the time when it went down. They didn't think it was coming in for a landing. But one woman I'm talking to right now, ma'am, what did you say? You heard an explosion? Hold on, Stacy. Here's another eyewitness. Go ahead.
We heard the explosion, and then the plane went down. There was smoke everywhere. I went up there because I'm a nurse, and all you could see was body parts. There's nothing left of anybody.
No survivors?
None. None.
Was the plane taking off?
It looked like it was taken off because it was coming from the airport.
And what's your name?
Denise Godich.
Denise, thank you very much. So, Stacy, this is a nurse we just talked to. Where do you work?
Aliquippa.
She works at Aliquippa Hospital? Dialysis clinic. She said she was up at the scene and didn't see any survivers.
So, carrying at least 123 people has crashed in Pittsburgh. We'll have the latest on this as it comes into us.
But we have yet to receive official confirmation of that from USAir or from other emergency crews in the area. Again, as we have more information coming in, we will bring it to you. As we move on with our look at other news, for weeks the Clinton...
Live reports on the airplane crash this evening outside of Pittsburgh to WPXI now in Pittsburgh.
Of any type of room such as that being set up?
Not yet, Chris, but I can tell you, I see a lot of people, especially those individuals that were supposed to board but didn't get a chance to board. I see a lot of them flocking to the bars to try to soothe themselves through alcohol or drink or something. But the bars and the restaurants are starting to become crowded.
Mm-hmm. All right, Robin Beckham, again a Channel 11 employee who happened to be at the airport. Good luck to you. I do want to ask you finally, as a personal note here, do you have any qualms about getting on that plane and trying to fly to Seattle tonight?
I sure do. I really do. It's just not a comforting feeling knowing that something like this has happened and you're about to take off in the same plane, a Boeing... Was it a Boeing 737?
I'm guessing it was. I do not know the maker, but I would think it would be a Boeing. Yes, I'm now told it was a Boeing 737. They perhaps are the only makers of 737.
Well, that's the plane I'm supposed to get on, and I'm not feeling easy about that, to tell you the truth.
All right, Robin, our thoughts are with you, and take care and be safe, and I'm sure everybody's thinking that, but then on the other hand, you have to think of how many, many safe airline flights there are all the time, and of course, when we have a tragedy like this, you tend to forget about that, but usually...
Joining us now on the telephone is Leo Janssens, who is the president of the Aviation Safety Institute. It is a nonprofit consumer watchdog organization. Mr. Janssens, first of all, what do you make of what you've heard of the eyewitness reports from the scene so far, and reports that this plane apparently lost its engines, they shut down, and it nosedived into the ground?
Yes, first of all, I have no other reports than what I've seen on CNN and television here. It's very unfortunate that this thing happened, but these things do happen occasionally. USAir has had a run of bad luck here, and I ain't normally travel USAir myself because I'm out of Dayton, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. I frequently get to Pittsburgh. They normally run a very good airline, but in this case, I simply do not know what happened. I am simply a spectator just like anybody else in this case.
And, of course, nobody can make any presumptions as to the cause of this particular crash until there is sufficient time to analyze the voice and flight data recorders. There's been a lot of confusion from people. All right, I'm sorry. We're going to interrupt you just for a moment, Mr. Janssens, and return to KDKA, CNN affiliate in Pittsburgh.
Of the disaster, but we're told by the firemen here at the staging area, the Green Garden Plaza, that there were no survivors, so they were more or less not needed at the crash site itself. So that was the first official confirmation that we have that there were no survivors. His name is Dr. Michael Zernich. He works at the Aliquippo Hospital just a couple of miles away. It's the closest hospital to this crash site. And Dr. Zernich says he was told by the firemen that there were no survivors at the crash tonight of Flight 427.
Ralph, now this goes hand in hand, obviously, with the nurse that you spoke to just a little while ago on our air who claimed that she also was at the scene.
That's right. She said that she was at the crash site and didn't see any survivors on the ground. She saw some people running to the scene to see if they could help in the situation, in the emergency, but she and her husband both did not see any survivors. But Dr. Zernich says that he brought some people here to try to take care of the injured from the crash, but there were none, unfortunately.
All right. Ralph Iannotti, we should let you know the reason that we're having to go by phone at this moment with all of our reports is that the traffic is tied up on Route 60, as you can imagine, and our live vehicles are still trying to work their way to the scene. Ralph got out of his car and walked at least a mile and a half to get to the scene where he is right now to report to you what is going on by telephone. It is Flight 427 from Chicago, and a crew of at least 4, we're guessing, and passengers of 126 passengers on board.
As Stacy Smith was mentioning, traffic in the area is backed up as a number of area interstates have been shut down, obviously because of this crash. We have a number of affiliates in that area, and as soon as they have their live equipment at the scene, we will bring you those pictures. I'm going to bring back Leo Janssens, who is the president of the Aviation Safety Institute. As I mentioned earlier, it's a nonprofit consumer watchdog group. Mr. Janssens, with the crashes and the run of bad luck that you were mentioning that USAir has encountered over the past 5 years, this is their 5th fatal crash. In 3 of those crashes, the aircraft were Boeing 737s. Is there any safety suspicion that we should be reading into that number?
I really don't believe so, because the Boeing 737 has been in service, airline service I'm talking about, for approximately 30 years. I don't know the exact number of flight hours, but it's got an excellent safety record. Sure, there have been crashes, but I ride them all the time myself. This one, again, it's just really too early to tell what has happened, and therefore I caution people not to be overly concerned at this point about the Boeing 737. USAir normally runs a very good airline. Of course, their safety record over the past 5 years has been less than admirable in terms of the rest of the industry.
Well, as a consumer watchdog group, what factors would you be evaluating in establishing perhaps what their safety rating might be?
Well, we normally look at whether the aircraft are safe according to the reports that we get from anonymous reporters in a lot of cases, whether the air crews are satisfied, whether the airline is trying its best to run a good operation. From all those indications, I get a positive indication, but I'm saying right now that I normally travel USAir, and possibly this has to be looked at again in light of these recent couple of accidents, one at Charlotte and one at Pittsburgh now.
Well, in the past accidents, 2 of them, well, one was blamed on pilot error, another one on air traffic control error. Third was blamed for ice on the wings, and the fourth, wind shear, was apparently the cause. We have yet to learn the cause of tonight's crash. Does that factor into, again, your evaluation of the safety record with the airline?
Of course it does. The idea that only one cause of an accident is the major cause is no longer valid. There has to be air traffic control concerns, there might be pilot concerns, there may be mechanical concerns, reliability, even aging aircraft. Now, one factor, the Boeing 737 is getting to be an old aircraft, the early models of it. There's been several updates to it, and the newest Boeing 737s are still rolling off the assembly line. But again, it's the point that you don't know exactly the condition of this aircraft that went down. That'll have to be determined later.
Do the airlines provide detailed maintenance information to the regulatory bodies in terms of when aging aircraft are being overhauled and updated, and just how complete those overhauls are?
Well, the answer is yes and no type of thing. There is a certain good amount of information that is being made available, but no one is really certain at this point in time when an aircraft should be retired from service. That's one of the things we're studying at the Aviation Safety Institute. However, USAir, I think, has got a very good program in this regard. I talked to them recently, as a month ago, about this whole program, and I'm confident that they're on the right track with this.
All right, Leo Janssens, who is the president of the Aviation Safety Institute, thank you for joining us. Just to recap for you, USAir flight number 427 out of Chicago, bound for West Palm Beach, Florida, with a stopover in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, has crashed this evening. From eyewitness reports that we've received, the plane was due in at 7:09 p.m., went down 6 minutes shy of its touchdown in a field west of Aliquippa in Hopewell Township. That's in Beaver County, Pennsylvania, about 20 miles northeast of Pittsburgh. We are told it crashed in a field behind the Green Garden Shopping Plaza, about a half mile away from there. According to most of the eyewitness accounts that we have had from the scene, including subsequent interviews with some emergency personnel, it appears that there are no survivors. There were reportedly 126 people on board, according to USAir. Presumably that does not include the Philadelphia-based crew that was on board. Please make a note of the station you are watching and stay with CNN's continuing coverage of the crash of USAir Flight 427. We'll be right back.
This is CNN Breaking News.
As we continue to cover the crash this evening of a USAir jetliner a short time ago outside Pittsburgh's airport, we are receiving a great deal of information from a number of sources out in the field. Joining us on the phone now to help sort some of this out is Assistant Vice President of Public Relations for USAir, Dave Shipley, from their headquarters in Washington. Mr. Shipley, can you sort this out for us? What happened?
Well, what we have to date is USAir Flight 427, a Boeing 737-300, with 126 passengers and a crew of 5 en route from Chicago O'Hare Airport to Pittsburgh, is down about 6 miles west of the airport at Pittsburgh. There was no indications of any problem with the flight. The weather is clear, and that's pretty much what we have at this point.
So you are confirming for us that the flight was landing at the airport at the time?
Yes, it was on approach to Pittsburgh.
And there have been reports that there are no survivors, although KDKA, I think, is now reporting there is one survivor. What are you hearing about that?
I can't confirm that. I have no information on survivors at this point.
All right. Have you heard anything about, I know you can't talk about the cause per se, but eyewitnesses were saying they heard an explosion and there was a lot of smoke and fire and this sort of thing. Are you getting any information on that, on how the plane went down?
We have no indication at all as to what caused the accident.
Okay. Is there anything else that you can offer us at this time?
That's really about as much as I have at this moment.
Are you concerned, Mr. Shipley, about the, we were just speaking a few moments ago with Leo Janssens of the Aviation Safety Institute, and we talked a little bit about the safety of the 737 only because it has been involved in 3 out of the last 5 USAir crashes.
There is no question that the 737-300 is a completely safe airplane. We operate a large number of them, as do a lot of other airlines around the world.
This has been a difficult 5 years for USAir. How will you handle that from a corporate standpoint?
Well, we have had 5 accidents in 5 years. One of those we were totally exonerated from blame. That was in Los Angeles several years ago. There has been no thread of continuity whatsoever between the accidents. They all seem to be isolated incidents. Of course, the one in Charlotte last July, the cause of that is yet unknown. The investigators seem to be targeting it on weather at the time. And, of course, we have no idea at this point what caused the one in Pittsburgh.
Is there a phone number that friends and relatives of those on board Flight 427 can call, or someone they can contact if they are listening?
Yes, it would be area code 703-418-5100.
Mr. Shipley, thanks very much for joining us. Again, that number was 703-418-5700. Lyndon?
On another line is Pat Carissio, who is a spokesman with the Federal Aviation Administration. Mr. Carissio, what can you tell us that we haven't reported so far this evening?
At this point, we just have some sketchy information. What I can tell you is that apparently USAir Flight 427, which was a 737 aircraft, bound from Chicago O'Hare to Pittsburgh, crashed approximately a few minutes after 7 p.m. this evening. We understand there were 126 passengers and a crew of 6, and at this point, that's all the information we have.
All right. Where does the FAA take it from this point on in terms of evaluating the possible cause of the crash and so on?
That is the responsibility of the National Transportation Safety Board, which is an independent federal agency which will be investigating this crash.
All right. What, if anything, then, will you be looking into from your end?
Obviously, we will help with the investigation. However, it's obviously too early to take a look at this.
Given the fact that this is the fifth fatal USAir crash in the past 5 years, 3 of those, again, the Boeing 737s, are there going to be any safety concerns on the part of the FAA regarding either the airline or the aircraft type? Because the 737 has replaced the 727 as the most produced commercial aircraft in the world.
At this point, it's too early to be able to comment on that.
All right, Pat Carissio, a spokesman with the Federal Aviation Administration, thank you for joining us. Again, to recap, USAir Flight 427, bound from Chicago to West Palm Beach, Florida, with a stop in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, crashed this evening. Now we are receiving live pictures from the scene. This is west of Aliquippa in Hopewell Township. It's about 20 miles northeast of Pittsburgh. Let's listen into some of the commentary from CNN affiliate KDKA and see what they've learned from the scene.
A downed aircraft. Again, the aircraft flight number 427 from Chicago to Pittsburgh. You were witnessing the video for the first time as I was. Here is some more that we have. This was shot obviously not that long ago because of the darker pictures. This is from the Green Garden Plaza. There is another helicopter. I'm not sure if that is one of the medical helicopters or perhaps from the air base that is stationed out there looking over the area. We've been told it has taken at least one person from the crash scene to Allegheny General Hospital. Now, whether the person who was taken to Allegheny General Hospital was on board the flight or on the ground, we do not know yet. As soon as we have any of that kind of information, of course, we will let you. Firefighters all converged on the area, as have police units, state police, and apparently we have an interview. Let's listen. Well, we're not going to listen to that interview at this moment until I guess we get a chance to preview it here at the station. The pictures you are seeing were just being fed back to us just as soon you're seeing them for the first time as we were from the scene. That's at the Green Garden Plaza in Beaver County near Hopewell Township. The plane went down in Center Township. 126 people on board that flight at USAir Flight 427 from Chicago to Pittsburgh. Apparently it was going to take off from Pittsburgh and head on down to West Palm Beach, Florida. The last time there was a plane crash in the Pittsburgh area was, oh boy, nearly 40 years ago. Back on.
Well, as we've all been reporting this evening, there is no indication of the cause of the crash at this time, but it would appear from the pictures we just saw that weather may not have been a factor. But let's check in with Karen McGinnis.
Now, Bobby, as soon as we heard about this incident, we checked the weather conditions all across Pennsylvania, specifically in the Pittsburgh area. Everyone reporting partly cloudy to mostly clear weather conditions at the time of the crash. They just took a weather observation. The temperature at the Pittsburgh airport was 73 degrees, nothing but clear skies. Now, there is a frontal system which is moving across the Great.
airfield in a county about 20 miles northwest of Pittsburgh. From all of the reports we are getting from the scene, from eyewitnesses, from emergency dispatchers, and so on, we are told that it appears that there have been no survivors from the crash. However, CNN affiliate KDKA in Pittsburgh is reporting that one person has been taken to an area hospital, but they have not been able to confirm whether that person was on board the plane, on the ground, or perhaps was a spectator who might have succumbed to any sort of shock, or perhaps any of the emergency crew suffering any sort of smoke inhalation. Eyewitnesses told us, let's break into KDKA. They're talking to an eyewitness of the scene.
So we went up there. When we got there was people running back there like crazy, trying to see if we could help. But all we seen was body parts hanging from the trees and just people everywhere. You could just see just parts of them. And my husband said all he saw, the only total body was like a 3 or 4 year old girl. And he says that's the only one he could recognize as a person. He saw like heart beating and things like that.
Other than the people running to try to see what they could do, you saw no survivors?
No survivors, no.
Was there flames, a lot of fire?
There was a decent amount of fire, but by the time we walked out, it was almost gone.
Thank you, Denise, very much. Spell your last name again.
Godich.
And you were right here?
Well, that was a nurse from Aliquippa Hospital who went to the scene. A rather graphic description for you as to what she saw at the scene. 126 people on board the plane, Flight 427 from Chicago to Pittsburgh.
Well, a horrible picture is emerging of tremendous human destruction tonight in the crash of USAir Flight 427.
And we will continue with our live coverage here on CNN. Larry King Live is coming up next, and Larry will continue with coverage of this breaking story as well. I'm Bobby Batista.
I'm Lyndon Souls. Thank you for joining us. Please stay with CNN for the latest on this developing story.
NBC, 2 great comedies, both up for an Emmy as Outstanding Comedy Series. Don't miss Seinfeld, followed by Frasier. Then, it's a special episode of the Emmy-nominated drama Homicide with guest star Robin Williams. It's all tonight, right here on NBC.
Scuba diving.